So here we are, folks, finally in part 2 of this two-parter creative focus episode, how to get better at building in creative, and we have a few more plots for you to peruse and for me to critique. So guys, without further ado, let's get on with the episode. Just before we do though, guys, thank you for those who subscribed after my request for support last episode. 10 more subscribers is amazing. We are getting closer to that 100 every day, but still 90% of you guys watching are not subscribed. So guys, join in, be part of the Major Graft fan club. T-shirts and hats coming your way. Only joking, but yeah, guys, I'd love to see you subscribing and enjoying more of this content. So with that said, let's get on with the episode. So here we are at build 48, and we are back with a familiar face now, a bit of a staple on these videos. We have another plot by Queen Bethic, and this one is entitled Brawnstone Kingdom, and again, a really great, unique style of building, different from her other plots, which shows she has some versatility, which I really appreciate. But there's a few things of note to take from her building here, things we can learn from and wonder at. And the first thing, if you look at the terraining, is I wonder how much of that was done by hand. You see these wonderful, very precise curves, almost like an ordnance survey map, showing the exact topography. Really gives that idea of natural curves and hills. That's not easy to do and requires a bit of skill. I don't know, was that done with World Edit? Was that all done by hand? If that was all done by hand, really amazing work there, because it really does give a really unique feel to the build. But what we can take from that is a really good thing to do to help your build style is to learn how curves work, how to make shallow curves like that, how to make steep rounded curves for these corners, and how to string them together in smoothly flowing lines. It's surprisingly trickier than it looks to make those smooth flowing undulations, so it's worth practicing that as a skill to input into your building. I love the little fruit player heads there. It's a beautiful little touch there as well. These boulders, I would say, again, I think I've said this on a few builds before, be careful they don't look too spherical. It can look a little bit like you just World Edit plonked them in. Try your best to kind of make them different shapes and make them not all very sphere-like. So a little thing that could be done to improve, but as I say, a very little thing. Now, let's have a look at some of the structures, and I think you'll agree these are wonderful. Note the ever such a slight hint of lilac here that matches with the trees. We were talking about palette a couple of plots previously. That's a really subtle example of it, that yes, most of it is stone and wood, as you see in many buildings, but there's little hints that tie it in to the rest of the build. It's very clever and subtle way of making the plot feel harmonious. Do we have interiors? No, I don't think we do in this one, so that gives us one less thing to think about. Again, we've got some great efforts at custom trees there, making this little forest, and then we have this little town, which we can have a little wander around and see the main structures. I think this is really charming, fairly straightforward stuff that you've probably seen before. Roughly speaking, the very simple A-frame roofs, done really well. But what's nice about this is, I think we'll start here, why not? I think I missed the entrance, but it's nicely detailed. I love these flags running across the streets, the crates and storage everywhere, making it feel alive, and the hay bales, and occasional people in the window. windows, and then through these grand archways into the inner courtyard and the keep in the corner of this plot. The diagonal stairs in, just to add a bit of variation, and this lovely colour here. I like this space because, again, it doesn't feel too familiar. The use of the carpets and then the flaming torches and the great detailing on the pillars is fantastic. And again, this is someone who understands how structures work. You've got pillars in the right places holding up these first floor walkways. That whole area is held up by those pillars. That's exactly how a real building would work. And up here, the feeling of space here as you look. What are these battle plans being drawn up, perhaps? Nice little touch there, a war room and the library. Very nice detailing to this plot. Really, really well spaced out. It has a real feeling of space and grandeur. When we look on the outside as well, there's some great efforts of putting banners down, again adding those touches of colours to an otherwise mostly stone building. It's a simple thing, it makes a big difference. Now, on the note of building larger structures, I would also point out that if you're struggling to figure out how to plan a larger structure like this, let's have a look at the way that Queen Bethic's done here. And we have a handy cross section, which makes it really easy to explain. But it's really simply subdivided. You've got the floor level, so there's a low wall up to about 5-6 blocks high there, and then a roof in to a second floor. It's a basic square on the bottom, L shape above that, and then this last part, which is a shame is not detailed inside, but is effectively a second building plonked on top of the first, because instead of putting a roof here, it's been flattened completely right the way to the edge of the plot if you look through that window, and then this second building in the same style as the build below has been put on top. And because it's in the same style, it blends really well and looks like one much larger building. It's not a complicated building though. As large as it is, it's a square on the ground floor, an L shape on the second floor, and another building on top of a flat roof, and then some nice roofing to finish. Again, look at these roof beams, thinking about how to make these big structures look like they're being supported. Very clever structure design. So yeah, lots to learn from that plot. Again, I really would recommend getting in and having a look. And I didn't notice this the first time I looked, but there's little erect building as well, little touches of life to the place. Really clever. So come have a look, come have a wander around, maybe give it a like. It's really important, guys, if you're on the server, to come and support all these keen Shadow Kingdom builders with your likes and your comments. And I think this is a plot that's definitely deserving of some likes. So great work, Queen Bethic. Here we have build number 50, the Valley of Magic by Erenia, who I think is first build being featured on these videos. I think this is the first one that she's put up, and this is not an overly complicated building, terrain-wise or structure-wise. There's a lot of things done really nicely, and what I thought was interesting is to use this as a comparison with where we left off the last episode. If you didn't see it, go and check out the last 5 minutes or so of the previous video and have a look at that plot, which is structured exactly the same as this. It's the plot I think we're talking about is, that's it, Crescent Moon Castle by Blocky Pro 2008. Now compare that to this. It's essentially the same idea. There's a pool in the middle, a body of water. There's these spire-like cliffs all the way around the outside, and then there's structure in the middle. This isn't a stone brick tower, this is a bit more natural, but it's the same overall structure, but there's a very different feel to it. And there are a few very simple things that have been done that elevate this over the previous example. Little things like there is more variety in the height of all of the cliffs around the edge. There's more up and down. They're not all the same height. They vary a little bit. There's this structuring of layers, of levels, and on each level there's grassy areas, and then there's the steeper cliffs, and then grassy areas down below as well. That gives that natural feel that grass and soil has settled on the tops of these ledges, but not on the sides of these steep cliffs. And then again, look at these really good looking trees, nice custom trees. I particularly like how the roots hang over the cliff edges and look like they're clinging to the edge of these cliff edges. It's a nice effect done throughout. And again, the basic detailing, there's more variety in block colours, block choices. There's all of the flora around the flowers, again keyed in. Look at the palette choice, all purples and blues and whites to fit together on this plot. Again, we see that clever illusion of depth with the glass blocks and this wonderful, slightly magical hinting purple water. Fantastic, huge tree towering above us. And then lastly, these little details that make it have a little bit of story to it. There's these little cave-like dwellings all the way around the plots, all nicely detailed as if there's people living in this valley. It really makes it feel magical. Maybe these are fairy homes or almost a bit hobbit hole-like, aren't they? Which again gives that idea of storytelling. It's really a clever thing to do to make your plots look just a little bit different, a little bit more interesting. So yeah, world building happening here, storytelling happening, and it's definitely something you should give a go to if you're trying to make interesting builds. So well done, Aaron here. Thanks for letting us see that as a really interesting plot. Thank you. It's fantastic how we've had so many different build styles so far in this episode, and here we have yet another one. We have build 51 here, entitled Force, by Blueboat, who is a long time builder on the server, who's put up some really incredible things. This looks like a first foray into putting a plot in for the new creative build discovery server here. This is a fraction of what Blueboat can do, but there are some interesting points to have a little look at whilst we're here in a charming little plot. And this time I want us to have a look at the sense of action here. We have this wonderful sort of strange spacecraft like build, and here we have this sense of force coming out, use of the glass blocks to demonstrate this force, or these jets of something coming out of the craft, and the way that it's placed close to the ground. And we see again these little hints of action in that all the trees behind it are all bare and burning, and all the trees in front of it have not been touched. Gives that little hints, little clues as to what's going on in the scene for us as viewers. It's a very clever way of hinting that this is quite destructive, albeit maybe by accident. But it gives you that idea of immense speed or heat happening there. So it's a clever touch, making that touch the ground the way that it does, especially here. See this particular one, it hits the ground and the steam or smoke sprays outwards. It's a clever sense of energy and dynamics. So yeah, a really bright, fun, interesting little plot there, and definitely a trick to have a go at. Really neat little idea there. So great job, Blueboat. Now we're going to take a look at a less complex build again, fairly simple, not a massive amount going on, but some interesting things to pick from this, good and bad. This is build 52, Garden of the Gods by Negative Bear. I met a Negative Bear in game and they requested a shout out, so here's my shout out to you, Negative Bear. Great work on your plot here. So let's have a look and see what's going on. I think what this demonstrates is someone who is having a go at the basics of what is required on a plot. There's some decent attempt at unique terrain, there's some basic attempt at some good structures, an overall story happening with these hints of sort of worship buildings, these temple-like structures, and again there's good attempts at organics. So all of the elements that are required for a really good plot are all here in a basic form and done really well. It's obviously someone who is learning and developing and practicing those skills, and this is an example of all of those practicing skills being practiced well. I want to point out this idea of using the are these bone blocks for the trees. I've not seen that done before. Maybe that's not new to you guys, but it was a new one to me, and I really like that. I thought that was a really nice block choice, and I think that's really important, that you don't always go with your first idea of what block should be used, but think creatively. You know, it's way too easy to maybe just go for the birch blocks if you want a white block tree and not think any further. But this is a builder who is thinking about and experimenting with blocks to get different effects, and it makes those trees stand out. They're great. I really like them. One thing I would say is, as we've been saying quite a lot in this episode, if we're going to look at this from the perspective of colour and colour theory, this feels very cold. Now, this is possibly on purpose. Perhaps if these are ice spikes, these cold colours have been chosen, but maybe they haven't. Maybe that's been done without realising. But either way, what you need to think about is what the effect of, for example, all of this grey. That's a lot of grey on the landscape, and what that does is it makes the landscape feel cold, stony, hard, and that maybe is in contrast to the hints of temples and kind of the sandstone structures, which you generally see more often in builds that look like more deserty, hot, exotic builds. Now, if that's a conscious choice, well done, it has created an effect. If it's not, in your own builds, when you look at them, think about what colours do I have in my plot, and what does that communicate to the person looking at the plot. So well done, Negative Bear, great attempt. Can't wait to see your future plots and what you do going forward. So great stuff. And now we arrive at build 53, Spaceport Fosgate by, let me see if I can pronounce this one right, a Cepheid variable. Hey, I've given it a go. Thank you to you for letting us see this build. At first I wondered if I should show this one because it seemed very simple and not much to see, but actually as I looked at it, there are definitely some points to bring out here, which I like, and again a very different style to some of the builds that we've seen up till now. A bit more sci-fi, a bit more modern style builds, futuristic builds. A great attempt at a spacecraft similar to Blue Boats from a couple of plots ago, and done really well with that glass effect, the force onto the ground. What I would say is, if you're going to do these kind of simple lettering, sometimes it's great, sometimes it works, sometimes it can make your plots look a little bit cartoony perhaps. I think overall it works on this plot so far, but just be careful when you're putting block lettering like that. And then we come down these steps, and there's lots to see down here, and it's really interesting. Nice, unique style. Very kind of clean lines, mostly greys with the colour hints, and these stripes is very often used method of giving that feel of a modern build. Gone is the stone bricks and the wood, and in with the concrete blocks, the quartz, the wool, the carpets, to give these bright modern colours. And there's lots of little details too inside here. One of the things that you will notice around all of this plot is there's some really good use of end rods, which are, for me, I find it a little bit difficult to use in a natural way, but then I don't build modern very often. Again, playing with the glass there with that funky floor, that's quite fun. A little cafeteria area here. Lovely use of the anvils as table legs there. I like that. That gives a little bit of detail to the builds. Really, really good. Now, I always get lost in here because everything's everywhere. But let's go in here and into this main space and look at this. This makes it feel like a space. I love the ceiling here, the grey and the turquoise colours with the end rods. A really clever way of lighting up big spaces, because I'm sure you'll know if you're trying to do a big build, one of the hard things is to not make it feel gloomy. But with all those end rods in, it's a really bright, open spaceport feel to it, which is very, very well done. So yeah, as I said, really clever use of end rods there. I like these modern, clean lined water features as well. I also like the way that the lights are embedded all the way in the floor as well. You can see all of those sea lanterns disguised by the carpets. All adds up to making this build feel really interesting and light and bright, which is, as I say, it's a very difficult thing to do. I would say the high contrast blacks and whites and colours for the most part in this work really well. I would say be careful when you're doing that though. Sometimes it can look a little cartoony if you're not careful, especially if you use too many primary colours, the blues, reds and yellows. It's going to look a little bit cartoony instead of modern. So this is an example of it done largely very well, but it is a hard thing to do, so well done. Let's have a little look in here. What's this? Ooh, circuits. Antimatter energy converter circuits. Great. Again, an attempt to set the tone. The kind of engine room of sorts for the spacecraft, hinting at the inner workings of it. Done really well. And then in here, I also like up here, if we're going to fly up here, I love this. I wanted to see it from this angle rather than using the lifts, just because I think you get a better view of it. This is where I'm talking about the danger of using primary colours. You see the blues and reds are okay there. They work as kind of trying to make it modern and vibrant, but it can look a teeny tiny bit cartoony with the primary colours. So they've used the water streams here as lifts, so we'll use them to get up to this next area, see if there's anything that we've missed. Oh yes, the hotel. They've even built a hotel at the spaceport, feeling a little bit boudoir-ish with the dark rooms with the red and blacks. Very interesting. Again, block choices to create different areas. You know you're in the hotel because the palette choice has changed. It is slightly strange to have a corridor that doesn't seem to lead anywhere though. That's perhaps something to think about when you're building your structures. Make sure that everywhere there's an obvious purpose to the areas that you have and the routes you can take. I do like this as well, the little alcoves with the lights underneath them. Another good way of hiding the lights, because here we've not got all the end rods. Instead, we've got the hidden sea lanterns, which works really, really well. And I'm sure there's plenty underneath these carpets as well to hide the lighting. So yeah, some interesting techniques used here, and definitely if you're into more modern building, there are not many examples to take ideas from. So this is a great plot to come and have a little visit of and admire. I certainly enjoyed it. It's not a build style that I do very often, so it's great to see it done by other builders. So great work. So here we are at our penultimate build of the video, build 54, the Badlands, and this is getting to feel a little bit like deja vu, another plot by Queen Bethic. My goodness, does this builder build prolifically, and this time sometimes I choose to start a plot in a different place to where the builder has made. For once I'm going to respect the builder's wishes here. This is where we TP into when you visit the plot, and I think it's worth pointing out this is a clever use of scale to storytell and world build. As you come out of these on this bridge with all these turrets, I love how these big bare trees and strange plants tower above you, even though they start right down there at the bottom. That really gives a sense of scale and enormousness to the flora. Nearly said fauna. The flora in this world, this place, these Badlands with the skulls everywhere, really setting a theme here. And the bridge, the way that you walk through that bridge, it really does make you feel small as a player. You see how these trees and structures tower over you. It's a very clever use of scale to make you feel small, and conversely to make the builds feel large. That's rather a lot of cobble for me, I will admit. I would have maybe scaled that back a little bit, but still a really interesting build and different than Queen Bethic's other styles. So showing a real versatility in the building. I do like the mixture of the dark oak and the cobble there in that structure. Really gives a really sturdy feel to the builds. Gives it a real kind of solid build feeling, doesn't it? That this huge towers have stood for who knows how long, and then inside, I don't know if there's any interiors, but we're gonna have a little look. I like these the long rows of pillars along the balconies. That's great fun. I really like that. I think that's, again, really nice. No interiors, but you can see how it's been structured. Again, that same idea of big platform and then corridors raised above it to create the structure of a large build. Really simple on the floor below as well. It's just a square build with the corner cut off to make that diagonal and split into two rooms with these massive pillars. The wall, like 5 blocks thick, really makes this place feel solid and enormous and fortified. So what else did I want to have a quick look at? Let's have a look at the details underneath. I love these little red accents on the bridges here. Again, what we're talking about, the palette choices, beautiful detailing and keys into the rest of the plot, the browns and the reds coming through. I think you'll notice the boulders as well. As we said before, some are a bit more round, some are a bit more blocky and square. It does a good job of making them feel natural. Nice attempt at bones and skulls down here. There's some storytelling happening with these cages, and particularly gruesome I find these bodies, are they, are utterly disturbing. I'm going to have nightmares about them tonight. They are horrific. So well done, Queen Bethic. You've really achieved your aim there, I think. So yeah, really well done. Completely different style, theme and world building again in this plot. Great stuff. And now here we are at our final build of the video, build 55, Snow Village by Unnatural. And again we get another completely unique style. I love how we see so much variety on the plots here at Shadow Kingdom, and this is just another excellent example of it. We're gonna have a little wander around before we finish and see what's happening here, what's good, what's not so good, what works, what doesn't. And to be honest, there's a lot that works on this. I love the way that the landscape kind of dictates where the buildings are. You get these winding stairs and bridges that wind you and twist you up through the builds, and as you get to the bigger open spaces you start to see how people are living here on this huge cliff. And we have the farms, not in squares, you'll notice. Look, these are round structures sat on top of buildings. Really great detailing all the way down to a really strong foundation there. And the walkways, although they seem thin, are all supported underneath. There's thought about how this physically stands together. And then I do think that this is really hard to do, but done really well on this plot. If you look, the builds are built on the sides of cliffs a little bit, which is not easy to do. These builds that don't just sit out on a flat or flattish spot, they are built into a structure, which adds a very different feel to it, and a really unique feel to all of these little shops here as well. And then the main structure at the top here, really nicely detailed, putting the detail into these columns, not just putting the same block all the way up to show a column. The little extra efforts to make the detailing really do add nice touches to this build. And let's go in and have a quick look at the interior of the grand, huge chandelier there, and what I guess must be a throne. Let's sit enthroned for a moment and feel powerful. So there we go, guys. That's today's video. I've really enjoyed looking at some of these plots. I think you'll agree there is some phenomenal building being shown off in the last 15 plots, and there is much more to come. As I said in the last video, guys, it really does help me on the channel if you would consider subscribing. We're getting close to that target of 100 subscribers now. I'd love it if you can help us to hit that as soon as we can. Guys, thanks for watching, thanks for taking your time to enjoy this content, and we'll see you in the next one.